November 22nd, 1922, Gosport, Indiana. A child was born into a world on the brink of collapse. The roaring 20s masked deep economic fractures that would soon erupt into the Great Depression. Eugene Morrison Stoner entered life with nothing but his name and a quiet, relentless curiosity that would one day arm millions of soldiers, reshape infantry tactics, and ignite debates that endure to this day. In a small farming town where most families struggled to put food on the table, no one could have predicted that this boy, who would never attend college, who would spend his early years installing aircraft parts in California factories, would design the most influential military rifle in modern history. Yet that is precisely what happened. Not through connections, not through formal credentials, but through a willingness to question assumptions that everyone else accepted as truth. Working late nights in his Long Beach garage after shifts at the Vega Aircraft Company, the young machinist sketched modifications to weapons he had never been formally trained to build. He was trying to solve a problem that had frustrated military designers for decades. How could you create a rifle light enough for soldiers to carry through jungles and mountains, powerful enough to stop an enemy at 500 yards, yet reliable enough to function in the harshest conditions on Earth? According to every expert in the firearms industry, according to the United States Army Ordnance Corps, according to traditions stretching back to the American Civil War, the answer was simple: you could not. A truly lightweight automatic rifle was impossible. The physics did not allow it. The materials did not exist. Anyone who claimed otherwise was either a fool or a fraud. Stoner was neither. He was simply an engineer who saw potential where others saw limits. The apprentice, from aircraft factories to jungle warfare. The year was 1939. Eugene Stoner had just graduated from Long Beach Polytechnic High School. College was not an option. The Depression had wiped out his family's savings. While his wealthier classmates headed to Stanford and Berkeley, Stoner walked into the Vega Aircraft Company and asked for work. They hired him to install armament on training aircraft. The job was more than employment. It was an education. It required precision, mechanical intuition, and access to materials most gunsmiths had never seen. Most critically, it exposed him to aircraft-grade aluminum, a lightweight, corrosion-resistant metal used in airframes but never in firearms. For generations, rifles had been built from wood and steel, heavy, dense, traditional. Steel was strong, but added punishing weight. Wood absorbed moisture, warped in humidity, and cracked under stress. Both materials forced soldiers to carry 9 to 10 pounds of dead weight on every patrol. But aluminum, when properly engineered, offered a different path. It was 1/3 the density of steel, yet strong enough to handle the explosive forces of rifle operation. The problem? No one had ever built a combat rifle from it. Every attempt had failed. Stoner filed that observation away. He would return to it. December 7th, 1941. Pearl Harbor. Like millions of young Americans, the 19-year-old enlisted, joining the U.S. Marine Corps as an aviation ordnance specialist. He never saw direct combat, but he witnessed something equally valuable: weapons failing under real-world conditions. In the South Pacific and northern China, he watched Marines struggle with the M1 Garand, a superb rifle, but too heavy for jungle warfare. He saw the M1918 Browning automatic rifle, BAR, powerful but weighing nearly 20 pounds. He studied the M1941 Johnson rifle, an innovative design dismissed by Army planners as too complex. Every evening, after maintenance duties, Stoner sketched improvements. He filled notebooks with alternative gas systems, straight-line stocks, modular bolt designs. His fellow Marines thought he was obsessed. They were right. By 1943, he had built 2.30 caliber carbine prototypes in his spare time. Neither was complete, but both contained concepts that would define his legacy. Straight-line stock, recoil channeled straight back, not upward. Simplified gas system, no heavy operating rod. Modular construction, rapid field stripping. These were not random ideas. They were systematic solutions to observed failures. The breakthrough: aluminum, fiberglass, and a radical gas system. After the war, Stoner returned to California and worked his way up from machine shop floor to design engineer. At Whitaker Aircraft, he mastered the precision machining of 7075 T6 aluminum, the same alloy used in fighter jets. He learned to machine it to tolerances of ±0.001 inches, a level of precision previously unheard of in firearms. In 1954, opportunity struck. A tiny R&D firm called Armalite, a division of Fairchild Engine and Airplane Corporation, hired him as chief design engineer. Their mission: apply aerospace materials and techniques to small arms. The U.S. Army had just announced a competition to replace the M1 Garand. The new rifle had to fire the 7.62 by 51 mm NATO round, be reliable, accurate, and, if possible, lighter than the Garand's 9.5 pounds. Major manufacturers submitted conventional designs. Springfield Armory's T-44, an updated Garand. Fabrique Nationale's FAL, Belgian, wood and steel, 9 pounds. Then came Armalite's entry, the AR-10. It weighed 7.25 pounds. Army testers assumed a clerical error. No rifle firing full-power NATO ammo could be that light. When the rifle arrived in late 1956, they were stunned. Receiver: forged 7075 T6 aluminum. Stock handguard. Fiberglass reinforced foam from aircraft insulation. Barrel: steel liner with aluminum sleeve to save weight. Gas system: direct impingement. Hot gas routed straight from barrel to bolt carrier, eliminating 2 pounds of reciprocating metal. Ergonomics: straight line design for controllable automatic fire. Initial tests were glowing. The AR-10 was easier to control in full auto than any rifle they'd tested. Accuracy was exceptional, sub 2-inch groups at 100 yards. Reliability was good. Then came endurance testing. During a mud and sand trial, the composite barrel failed catastrophically. The aluminum sleeve separated from the steel liner. The rifle exploded. The Army rejected it. They acknowledged its innovation, but concluded it would take 5 years to fix. They chose the T-44, which became the M14. But Stoner had learned a crucial lesson. The composite barrel had been a mistake, mandated by Armalite's president to save weight. Against Stoner's objections, he immediately designed an all-steel barrel. Too late for the U.S. Army, but not for the world. In 1957, Armalite licensed the AR-10 to a Dutch firm. Portuguese paratroopers used it in African colonial wars and praised its accuracy and reliability. French Foreign Legion troops in Chad called it one of the finest combat rifles ever used. The AR-10 worked. It had simply arrived too early for conservative American procurement. The vision: a rifle for the realities of modern combat. While the AR-10 found niche success, Stoner was already working on his next breakthrough. Military studies from World War II and Korea revealed a startling truth. 80% of infantry combat occurred at under 300 yards. At those ranges, the heavy 7.62 mm NATO round was overkill. A smaller, lighter cartridge could be just as effective, and soldiers could carry twice as much ammo. In 1957, the U.S. Continental Army Command issued a new requirement: a lightweight rifle firing a small caliber, high-velocity round. Stoner's answer: scale down the AR-10. The result was the AR-15, chambered in .223 Remington, later 5.56 by 45 mm NATO. Weight: 6 pounds versus M14's 9.5. Length: 39 inches versus M14's 44. Ammo capacity: 300 rounds versus M14's 140. Ballistics: tiny 55-grain bullet at 3,250 feet per second, designed to yaw and fragment in tissue, creating devastating wounds. Early tests confirmed its potential. It could penetrate a steel helmet at 500 yards and a flak jacket at 300. Marksmanship trials showed 43% of AR-15 shooters qualified as expert versus 22% with the M14. But the Army rejected it. They had just adopted the M14. They dismissed the .223 as a varmint cartridge. Ordnance Corps officials, who had been spurned when Armalite refused to sell them the AR-10 design, actively opposed it. By 1959, Armalite was bankrupt. They sold the AR-15 rights to Colt's Manufacturing Company for $75,000. The rifle seemed destined for obscurity. The turning point: watermelons, a general and a barbecue. July 4th, 1960. A farm in Maryland. Richard Boutelle, former Armalite president, hosted a 4th of July barbecue. Among the guests, General Curtis LeMay, Vice Chief of Staff of the U.S. Air Force, legendary planner of the World War II firebombing campaign, architect of Strategic Air Command, and a man who despised bureaucracy. Colt salesman William Mullen brought an AR-15, hoping for a chance to demo it. When he learned LeMay would attend, he set up watermelons at 50 and 150 yards. LeMay, an expert marksman, took the rifle and opened fire. The watermelons exploded. The tiny bullets, traveling at over 3,000 feet per second, caused dramatic hydrostatic shock. After emptying several magazines, LeMay declined to shoot the last watermelon. "Let us eat the son of a," he said. Over slices of watermelon, Mullen explained the rifle's advantages: 6 pounds loaded versus M14's 9.5, 240 rounds carried versus M14's 100. Superior marksmanship results. LeMay was convinced. The Air Force still used World War II-era M1 carbines, inadequate for base security. The AR-15 was perfect. He placed an order for 8,500 rifles and 8.5 million rounds on the spot. But there was a problem. The Army controlled all rifle procurement. They had already rejected the AR-15. They weren't about to reverse course because an Air Force general liked shooting watermelons. LeMay's request was denied. What followed was one of the most persistent procurement campaigns in U.S. military history. Promoted to Air Force Chief of Staff in 1961, LeMay gained direct access to President Kennedy and Secretary of Defense Robert McNamara. He filed request after request for 80,000 AR-15s. Each time, the Army blocked it, citing logistical complications of 2 calibers. Meanwhile, events in Vietnam shifted the debate. American advisors reported that Viet Cong, armed with AK-47s, were outgunning South Vietnamese troops with M1 Garands. The AK-47's intermediate cartridge, like the AR-15's, was lighter, more controllable, and deadlier in jungle combat. In late 1961, McNamara authorized a field test, 1,000 AR-15s sent to Vietnam. The reports were ecstatic. Ideal for jungle warfare, light, short, controllable. Soldiers carry twice the ammo. Wounds are devastating. South Vietnamese troops refused to give the rifles back. McNamara ordered a direct comparison. AR-15 versus M14 versus AK-47. The 1962 Hitch report was damning. The AR-15 is superior to the M14 in every measurable category. The M14 has failed to outperform even the AK-47. In November 1962, McNamara approved initial procurement. LeMay finally got his rifles, though not the full 80,000. The rifle was redesignated the M16. Colt made minor changes, moving the charging handle, and production began. By late 1963, tens of thousands of M16s were en route to Vietnam. Everything seemed perfect. Then, soldiers started dying, not from enemy fire, but because their rifles were jamming. The betrayal, how bureaucracy turned a masterpiece into a death trap. By late 1965, reports flooded in. M16s were failing in combat. Rifles jammed after 3 to 4 rounds. Soldiers were found dead beside disassembled rifles, trying to clear jams under fire. Marines wrote home, "Our own rifle killed most of us." Troops scavenged AK-47s from enemy dead, risking court-martial for a weapon they could trust. In a 1967 survey, 80% of 1,585 troops reported stoppages. Soldiers called it a Mattel toy. Fine for target shooting, fatal in combat. Stoner was stunned. He flew to Vietnam in early 1967 to investigate. What he discovered triggered a congressional investigation and exposed criminal negligence by the Army Ordnance Corps. 4 fatal changes had been made without Stoner's knowledge or consent. Gunpowder. Stoner designed the AR-15 for IMR 4475 stick powder, clean burning, consistent. The Army switched to WC-846 ball powder from Olin Mathian, an ordnance contractor. Result, dirtier residue plus 1,000 RPM cyclic rate versus 750 equals extraction failures. Spent cases tore, jamming the chamber. No chrome plating. Stoner and Colt repeatedly requested chrome-plated chambers, standard for military rifles in humid climates. The Army deleted it to save 25 cents per rifle. Result, chambers corroded in Vietnam's humidity, increasing friction and jams. No cleaning kits or training. The Army advertised the M16 as self-cleaning. No cleaning rods, no manuals, no training issued to troops. Result, carbon buildup plus dirty powder plus no maintenance equals catastrophic fouling. The forward assist. The original AR-15 had no forward assist. If the bolt didn't close, there was a problem to fix. Ordnance officers insisted on adding one, allowing soldiers to force rounds into dirty chambers, worsening jams. One Marine unit's tragedy epitomized the failure. Only one Marine had a cleaning rod. As his squad's rifles jammed one by one, he ran up and down the line clearing them. He was killed while trying to fix another man's rifle. The 1967 Congressional Subcommittee report was scathing. The M16 malfunctions were caused by Army mismanagement. The failure to take corrective action bordered on criminal negligence. Redemption. The M16A1 and the rifle's true legacy. The scandal forced immediate action. Chrome-plated chambers mandated, improved powder adopted, cleaning kits issued to every soldier, comic book manuals distributed, M16A1 standardized. February 1967. By late 1968, the malfunction rate dropped to 2%. Comparable to any military rifle. Soldiers who received the updated M16A1 with proper training found it excellent, light, accurate, controllable, and reliable. The rifle earned its place. It armed U.S. forces in Grenada, Panama, the Gulf War, Somalia, Bosnia, Kosovo, Afghanistan, and Iraq. It was adopted by over 80 nations. It inspired derivatives, Canada's C7, Britain's L85, Singapore's SAR-21. It revolutionized infantry tactics. Combat shifted from 400 to 600 yards to under 300. Fire and maneuver replaced static marksmanship. Air assault became viable. Soldiers could carry 300 rounds by helicopter. And it evolved. M16A2, 1980s, heavier barrel, improved sights. M16A4, 1990s, Picatinny rail for optics. M4 carbine, 1994, shorter, collapsible stock, today's standard infantry weapon. All shared Stoner's core innovations: aluminum receiver, direct gas system, straight-line stock, modular design. The man behind the machine. Stoner didn't stop with the AR-15. 1963, designed the Stoner 63, a modular rifle/machine gun used by Navy SEALs. 1990, created the SR-25, a 7.62 mm precision rifle adopted as the Navy Mark 11. In 1990, he met Mikhail Kalashnikov, designer of the AK-47. The two toured the NRA Museum, shot each other's rifles, and became friends. Both understood they were solving the same problem from opposite philosophies. Kalashnikov, simplicity, ruggedness. Stoner, lightweight, precision. Stoner died of cancer on April 24, 1997, at age 74, working on a new design in his Florida garage. He was buried at Quantico National Cemetery, among the Marines he'd served with in World War II. He left no fortune. Despite designing the most produced U.S. military rifle in history, he never grew wealthy. He avoided publicity, letting his work speak for itself. The legacy. America's rifle today, the M16 family remains the longest-serving U.S. service rifle. In use for over 60 years. 8 million plus M16s produced for military use. 30 million plus AR-15s in American homes. No replacement in sight. Recent Army trials concluded no new rifle offers sufficient advantage. The rifle Stoner built in a garage, dismissed as unmakeable, became the standard against which all others are measured. His story is a testament to quiet innovation over institutional arrogance, to engineering truth over bureaucratic pride. The Army Ordnance Corps had degrees, experience, and tradition. Stoner had a lathe, a vision, and the courage to ask, "What if we're wrong?" History proved him right. The rifle they said could not be made became, against all odds, America's deadliest battle weapon and its most enduring legacy.